Get in on the secret. September is one of the best times to visit the Boardwalk Plaza Hotel in Rehoboth Beach. The weather is grand, and just steps from the sand, you can relax and experience the convenience of their oceanfront location right on the Rehoboth Beach Boardwalk. Enjoy Victoria's Restaurant, the charming Plaza Pub and room service. Visit boardwalkplaza.com and book your perfect getaway today, or call 800-33-BEACH for fast, friendly assistance. Thanks to the Boardwalk Plaza for being the Bridge Podcast Network sponsor.
Why is service so important to Christians? Why do Christians serve? That is the topic of this week's podcast. I'm Mark Dickey.
And I'm Bert Miller.
This is the Why Do Christians podcast. Hey, welcome to the show. My name's Mark Dickey. I host the afternoon show on the Bridge radio station. My co-host is Pastor of Solid Ground Church.
Hold on, did you forget my name?
No.
It kind of felt like...
I'm still getting used to giving you middle names.
Okay. All right.
I did like 70-some episodes of a certain intro. Okay.
Yeah.
I need you to give me some space.
I like to think that maybe the excitement in the room is so palpable that it just gave you like a temporary amnesia.
No.
Okay.
My co-host is pastor of Solid Ground Church, Pastor Bert Salt and Pepper Miller.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. I do have that. Can I?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm fine actually. So because it's a podcast, you guys can't see. I have the little hair on my head is on my face. It's called a beard. I don't know why I said it like that. But it's very salt and peppery. It's white and black. I assume that's why you said that. Unless you thought like I'm a fan of the band Salt and Pepper.
All of the above.
Okay, great.
Speaking of things that listeners can't see, we have a special guest on this week's episode. Yeah. And we're excited to have Pastor Kenneth Wagner of United Church. Now, of Dover and Milford you guys started in Dover, right?
Dover, yep. Started 2015.
And God just blessed your ministry, and you guys have the campus in Milford now, and it smells like popcorn there because it's right next to the movie theater.
Right, yeah. Milford Movies 9. So you can come to Sunday morning experience and smell popcorn at the same time.
It's
perfect.
All right.
Yeah.
So great.
It's appetizing.
So good.
Dude, can I say that I am so excited that Kenneth is here? And I'm looking at Mark while I say that, but I'm going to turn to Kenneth. I'm so excited that you're here. Kenneth is one of my favorite people. I think incredible man of God, just a wonderful person to be around. So to get to talk to him at all about anything is always a privilege. But like we're in this series on the show right now on what are commonly called spiritual disciplines, things that Christians do to practice their spirituality. So we've talked about prayer, we've talked about worship, and we wanted to talk about serving. And, I thought somebody, like, probably to me, and that's what I texted you, like, to me, Kenneth is the guy because he's got such a heart to serve, and I think his church serves so well. So to have him here to talk about any of this it's a real treat. I'm really, really excited for it, Mark. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and, I mean, even here at the station, we actually look to United from time to time when we're thinking about, like, how can we love our community. So that's how good you guys do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love hearing that. And Pastor Bert, the feeling is reciprocated. Love you. Love our time together. Love our lunches, coffees, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anytime we can get together is a good time.
Yeah. Well, so then let me just get right into it. Kenneth, let's say that somebody was sitting down with you and they're saying, all right, Pastor Kenneth, I want to follow Jesus, and I've heard that serving is part of that. Why should I do it? What would you say to him?
I think that it goes right back to what we want for our people. I mean, I think that, when people come are part of United, our journey that we would love for them to go on is that they would know God, find freedom, discover purpose, and make a difference. And so, it's not just enough to just know God. We want them to know him intimately. It's not just enough to just know him. We want them to find freedom and to experience the freedom that Jesus paid a high price for them to have, but to discover their purpose, really to come alive and realize, not just, I think the two greatest times of your life are when you're born, and when you find out why you're born. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to, wake up in the morning and to go to work, whether you're a teacher, lawyer, doctor, nurse, whatever your vocation is, but to know that there's a purpose that transcends just your vocation, and there's a calling and there's a purpose on your life. So I think that to help people unlock that is like one of the greatest gifts that I have, that we have as the church, Big C, to be able to help people come alive and figure out why they were placed on this earth.
So with that, what do you love seeing happen? Like when somebody starts to serve, what do you love seeing happen in them when they begin to do that?
I think the greatest payoff would be is when they realize they're showing up, and we still, almost 10 years in, our Dover campus is still set up and take down. So it's load in 5:45 a.m. We're out of there by 2 p.m. And to see people show up, many of those people that are really probably 100 people that are showing up at 5:45, 6 a.m. and they don't look like they're singing, they're whistling, they're skipping down the hallways, but it's indicative to the fact that they're alive, they're coming alive, that this is they're creating a place for people to come and to worship. And man, it's just, I think that payoff is huge to see them just absolutely at their best.
Oh, that's interesting. So to hear, or somebody's there at 5:45 in the morning, I would think that the opposite would happen, where it would take energy.
Right.
But you're saying no, it actually flips it and empowers them?
Yeah. I mean, I live on the proverb that says God refreshes those who refresh others. And I think that is his faithfulness. He's a promise maker, promise keeper. So when we talk about that he refreshes those who refresh others, that as they show up with the spirit that I want to bring refreshment to other people, they themselves are refreshed. And so oftentimes people will be like, man, I'm in a busy season. I'm in a full season. We actually don't use the word busy at our church because everybody's busy. Everybody's got things going on. So full seasons, what we'll say is things are full, schedule's full. I actually encourage people to lean into serving and to not take time away from serving, because the thing they think is going to bring them the space and the margin they need is the thing that's actually bringing them the refreshment that they didn't know they were getting.
Wow.
And so as they're refreshing others, they're getting refreshed. And so it would be better if they took less hours at work. It would be better if they took the weekend off from taking their kid to the travel ball practice or the travel ball tournament or whatever it is. I don't want to pick on any one thing.
Sure.
But often the thing that they want to take off is the thing that's actually refreshing their soul. It seems counterintuitive, but it's a promise of God.
Yeah.
So lean into those promises.
So if there's someone who's not serving and there's lots of ways to serve, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Currently we're talking about serving at church. How should someone jump in?
Yeah.
Or do you jump in or do you stick your toe in?
Right. I think that the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about that is I've had so many conversations in the lobby. Lobby conversations are the best. Pastor Bert, you can attest to that.
Sure.
Lobby conversations. You just don't know where they're going to, it's wild card.
Yeah.
I mean, you just kind of, you have no clue which way it's going to go. But I think one of the things that I have told people, and callings and giftings are so different. And I actually said this to a guy one time. He said, Pastor Kenneth, I wish I could show up to unload the trailers at 5:45. I said, hey, I hear you say that, and man, that's refreshing to hear you say that. I said, but I think your calling, some people's calling is to unload the trailer, and some people's calling is to buy the trailer. And so I think that some ways their serving is honestly, if they're a business owner or if they're an entrepreneur and they're out there and they're, grinding Monday through Saturday and they're showing up on Sunday, some of the greatest ways they can serve. I think giving is a gift it's a way to serve the church. And so sometimes it's with your hands, sometimes it's with your heart, sometimes with your mind. There's all kinds of different ways I say that just because there's different ways to serve.
Yeah. Gosh, you've just uncorked a thing for me, so I want to spend a little more time there. So you've just brought up a really, really crucial idea of a person believing that, okay, man, I've got all this going on, so therefore I don't have time to serve. And what you're talking about is actually the self-sacrificial nature. It can be giving, and it can be all different ways. I guess my question would be, I think all of us at points feel the temptation to just say, you know what, I need to take a step back, or I've just got too much going on. We live in what's called the tyranny of the urgent, right? So my question would be, like what are some things that we can keep in front of us about the heart of God and the mission / ministry of the Church of Jesus to pull us forward when we don't feel like going forward? Because I think all of us experience moments where we don't feel like going forward.
Right. I think it would be unfair for me to say that there's never a season where you don't need to take a step back. I think that would be to put that yoke on somebody would probably be unfair. But I do think that it's less often than our flesh feels it is.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And Jesus was pretty clear when he said, I came to serve and not be served, and to give my life as a ransom for many. So as we follow Jesus, we follow his life and we follow his example. One of the greatest examples that he gave is that his whole entire life was laid down as an act of service. Mm-hmm. And so if we want to be more like Jesus, I don't think we're more like Jesus any other time than when we are serving.
Daggone.
So, it's our hearts forward, our flesh is as removed as it can be.
Yeah.
And we're leading, trying to show people what the heart of Christ actually looks like.
So for you, is that one of the main reasons to serve, is because we're like Jesus in that?
I think that's the greatest reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's not like I think that is the greatest reason, is that we are most like Jesus, and I believe that we are most alive. And I think there's probably somebody who's listening to this and they're like, well, I don't feel alive when I'm serving. And I would challenge the motive of serving. If the motive of serving is to be seen and to be recognized and for pastor to call my name, at the end of the day, like I want people to people at our church, or really any church, to not serve because I'm giving them recognition, but serve because there's an applause from heaven that can only come from heaven. Yeah.
So talking about the motive, and you sort of already answered this, but I want to call it out for the person who has been serving at their church for a long time and they are exhausted. And they have been showing up at 5:45, and there used to be some pep in their step. They used to love it, and they kind of lost that motive. What would you say to someone who's, let's just say, tired of serving?
Right. I think that's where our flesh, really enters in. I think that's where we start to see that those things are real feelings that people are really having. So it's not like hey, just get over it. You're actually feeling that way. You're actually, and I probably get the quote wrong, but I remember Pastor Crawford Loritz, he said a quote, burnout comes when there's too much distance between who you are and who you appear to be.
Wow.
And I may not have the exact wording of that right, but it's the idea of that's where a lot of burnout comes from, is when that imposter syndrome is too far from who we really are. And so if we're walking in the sincerity of who we are, the authenticity of who we are and who God's called us to be, and we're not trying to be the other person that's serving alongside of us, but we're just walking in our grace at the pace of grace that God has given us, that's when we feel alive. But when we're starting to see distance between those things, that's a lot of times where burnout comes. I've seen it in people.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So we're talking about serving. If somebody were to say, what does it, listen, there's lots of people who serve. Okay. So what does it matter if I serve or don't? And maybe we should also define serving. Are we talking about just within the local church? Are we talking in the community? But let's just maybe address that for a second here. Okay, man, there's a lot of folks already out there. Why me? What would you say to that?
I remember before we planted United, we led a student ministry at Calvary Wesleyan Church. Shout out to Pastor Ken Figs, my hero. But I remember there would be, we had it on Friday nights, and we did ministry from 8 to 10 p.m., which if my student pastor ever came to me and said, we're going to do students 8 to 10 on Friday night, I'd be like, no. And Pastor Ken's the hero because he allowed all that to happen. I say that because people would come to me when we were short on leaders. They would say, and they were the most well-intended in how they were saying, but they were saying, God's not going to give us more than we can handle.
Huh.
And I would see the other side of that. Okay, if God's not going to give us more than we can handle, then is God going to give us, is he going to bring the amount of students there that is indicative to what we are prepared to receive? So that means the less people serving, the less people are going to attend. It's not about attendance, because every number has a name, every name has every number has a name, every name has a soul, and every soul matters to God, and every story matters to God. Just butchered that quote.
We knew what you meant. Okay.
Yeah, but the whole point of this is, and I don't get distracted on that because I can always ruin a moment, but the whole point of it is this, is if more people showed up to serve, would God bring more people to our church? Because we would be prepared for the harvest that is actually there.
Yeah.
So for the person that's like, I don't know if I need to serve, I think as a follower of Jesus, I mean, and this may not be true, I have nowhere to prove this, but would we want to be the limiting factor for who God wants to bring to our house, the church that we are a part of? Would we want to be the limiting factor in that? And that's not a, I've never said that before from the platform. So it's not like a shame to whoever's not serving. It's just a thought that I'm having of like, is it possible that maybe we're the resistance?
Yeah.
The rise of the resistance.
Oh, I see what you did there.
You see there?
I see that. Yeah. Yeah.
We were talking about Star Wars before we went on air.
That's right. That's right.
It makes me think of like whether it's the worship team, or we could say, let's say greeters at the front, because anyone can hold a door and say, hello, welcome to church. And you go, oh, well, there's always two greeters at the front of the church, and it looks like all the slots are filled. I don't need to be a greeter.
Right.
Except maybe your church could begin a parking lot greeting ministry, but they've never been able to do that. Greet you or wave you into your spot, and 2 spots over here. Actually, that's for seats, not for cars. No one needs 2 spots except for. I was going to make a car joke, but I'm not a car guy.
No, but dude, you know what though? Like I remember, I think it was Tony Moog. That's not a person. Tony Morgan. I think he said the thing one time, like when it comes to the ministry of the church and people serving, there's never a point where we can spike the football. Like, there's never a point where
That's
it's right. Like there's never a point where it's like, okay, we've got enough now.
So good.
And hey, okay, our podcast quota is It's in the episode. Love it.
Wow.
Yeah. Kenneth is rolling with the podcast quotes today. This is great. So good. So good. So anyway, but back to it. Like here's my question, because you just said a thing that I think is really good, and that's okay. Like we don't want to be the limiting factor, but also all of us have gifts, right?
100%.
Like, and so I think your notion there is biblical, with the idea that we're all part of the body of Christ,
right?
And all of us have a function to play. So Kenneth, here's my question to you. What would you say to a person who's like, man, you know what? Like my gift is nothing special. I'm nothing special. Really, what difference is it going to make if I'm the one who's there?
Anybody who articulates that to me, I would say they're being lied to by the enemy, right?
Go on.
Anytime somebody's hearing something, I'm not enough, it's not good enough, it's not shiny enough, I'm not talented enough, it's not upfront enough. Anytime you're hearing that, the Holy Spirit doesn't speak in those ways. Holy Spirit is speaking in affirmation and drawing you near and seeing more in you than you see in yourself. So anytime you're seeing less in you than anybody else sees in yourself, or your self-worth is dropping, that's because the father of lies, which is his lies are his native language. So como se dice lies. That's what the enemy, that's his language. He speaks lies. And so when somebody's saying that, here's the phrase that gets me. I'll be at a conference, or I'll be at another church, and I'll be talking to somebody in the lobby that's clearly serving, and I'll say, so what do you do here at blank church? Fill in the blank. I just volunteer. And I'm like, hey, I will say this wherever I am. I'll say, hey, will you take just out of what you're explaining to me? I volunteer at this church. And the reason I say that is because that is who is building the church. We are equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. And so really, our staff, even at United and really at any church, is like, we shouldn't be accomplishing all of the things, whatever the things are. We should be equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. And it's not because we're like building it on the backs and like using people. We're helping people come alive in what God has actually uniquely wired them to do, that only they can do. That the 2 people that are greeting, when that becomes 4, now you've got diversification of smiles. You have 8 people. You have even greater diversification, because not everybody's going to be the same age, ethnicity, the same socioeconomic background. So when somebody's walking in, they're seeing the greeter that's wearing shorts, they're seeing the greeter that's wearing flip-flops, they're seeing the greeter that's wearing the blazer, they're seeing the greeter that's wearing the polo, and they're all over the map. Okay, there's the 16-year-old, there's the 45-year-old, there's the 65-year-old. Oh my gosh, like I didn't realize that people like me were represented at this church. So it's painting a picture. It's a beautiful thing. So
makes me think of it's kind of a lost art at this point, but I remember growing up going to the grocery store and we would have our favorite cashiers. We would it wouldn't matter where the line was. We would go, "Oh, there's that guy. He always says something funny." And we get in his line. Right. And nowadays you just pop your trunk and they throw all the
They'll figure that out with AI before too long, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Have your favorite AI.
I'm picturing the front of United in Milford, and you've got a couple doors. And the times that I've gone into your church, like I might switch doors because of the diversification of smiles. I love that.
No, yeah, I think that it's 100% true. And then when someone's missing, especially like we had a couple that just transitioned from our church to a different church, and thanks be to God, they landed in a Bible preaching, Jesus loving church, and somebody came up to me today and said, "Hey, where is so-and-so?" And people notice, like these people, you're not just holding a door.
Yeah.
You're becoming the comfortability factor for somebody as they're walking into church. It's like a safety blanket as they're walking into church. And so for somebody who's listening today and you've made it thus far with the Star Wars references and things like that, but
there has not been enough.
There hasn't been. Okay.
They haven't been alienated. They're fine. Okay.
But for those who have made it this far, is like your serve matters, your smile matters, your presence matters. Your pastor is so excited that you're there. That the leader that leads you is so excited that you're there. The people that are walking into church, they notice you. Like you're making a bigger difference than you could ever begin to wrap your mind around.
Man, that's so good. That was not deliberate. I really mean that. Like that just came out. There are two other questions, kind of, that what you're saying there. I want to make sure that we address. The first one would be this: like when you're talking about somebody who's been there for a while, and that idea of I just and you're making a difference, and people recognize it when you're there or you're not. My question would be, what would you say to the one who maybe, first of all goes, hold on, is the only way that I can serve inside of the church walls, or does the church have a responsibility to serve the community, and if so, how much? But then number two, what if my church doesn't have a space for me to use my gifts in the way that I'm wired currently? What should I do about serving?
Those are all, I feel like there's several questions, but they're all fantastic.
They're different questions. Yeah,
I think the answer is yes. Serve. Like, so it's, if your church doesn't have, let's start with that one. If your church doesn't have maybe something that you are specifically gifted in, I can't think of a perfect example. Soccer ministry, right? Yeah, I don't know if every church is not going to have a soccer ministry, but maybe your ministry in soccer is coaching a little league team and being the only light that these kids that are 7, 8, 9 years old are going to experience in their daily life. Even before we started recording, Pastor Burt, we were talking about just the callings that people have that bring normalcy to people's, that bring stability, that maybe they don't see that. And that's one example. So that's a soccer ministry may be kind of outside of the box, if you will. But then there's things like some churches, our church does a Serve Saturday every second Saturday of the month. Well, I think the beautiful thing about that is there's a Serve app. They can sign up. The next one that's coming out, there's 23 projects. And I think that what an amazing, beautiful kingdom example it could be if other churches, like, hey, we don't have the staff to be able to do that or resources to be able to do that, but like we're secure in the kingdom enough to say, like, hey, if you want to go, if you're wanting to serve outside the walls, like there's 23 projects going on at United, and nobody's being recruited to come to one church or the other. It's like, hey, we're going outside the walls to show people the love of Jesus, to hopefully that when they think, are there people here that care about me and that love Jesus, they never have to wonder that we have painted that picture so beautifully, not just about United Church, but the Big C Church, that there's people here that love me. So I think there's ways you can serve in your gifting. Specifically, there's ways that you can serve if your church doesn't have something, maybe other churches do. And I think that there's ways that no matter what your gifting is, that God can align different ways for that to flesh out and for you to make a difference in other people's lives.
So you've said something twice in this episode that I don't think we've ever said in the 80-some episodes of the Why Do Christians podcast.
How dare we?
You've used the phrase the Big C Church. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
For me, it's the passion of my life is the Big C Church, meaning the church that Jesus said as he was talking to Peter that he would build, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. It is the greatest, it is the vehicle that Jesus has chosen to use to redeem all of mankind. And yes, there's bad versions, there's perversions of the church, there's people that are bad leaders, but there is no other way. This is the way that Jesus has chosen to redeem the world, is through the local church. And he said the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Right. So if the gates of hell can't prevail against it, that means scandal can't prevail against it. That means a bad representation. And so we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so the Big C Church is every local church that is Jesus believing, Bible preaching. And I'm talking about all of the tenets of the faith, not just like picking and choosing what we want to teach and what we want to believe, but from Genesis to Revelation, if God said it, I believe it. And if God spoke it, I don't have an opinion on it. If he's king and I'm not, he's the lion and the lamb. He's both my friend, but he's also my king. And so when he speaks, I bow. And so all of those things, when I say Big C Church, I'm just talking about the church broad, the church abroad, the church universal, in the sense that all of those who are in our communities, there's amazing churches. I mean, I get the chance to pastor a church, but there's so many churches in the state of Delaware, on the eastern shore of Maryland, all around in this mid-Atlantic region that are preaching Jesus, that are exalting him, and believe the word of God is exactly word for word where we should be living, and that's the Big C Church. You hit a passion point if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Little C Church is just a church. Big C Church is God's worldwide, the big church, capital.
I'm a communicate preacher, so there's no way you could say anything that short.
There are 3 points in that.
That was right. Yeah, you had 3 points. Yeah. And they all start with C.
They were on. Yeah.
The Big C Church is conquering.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's championing and it's compassionate.
Okay, man. All right. That'll preach. Yeah.
I got my sermon for Sunday. I don't know how that's going to fit into a marriage series, but we'll figure it out.
By the way, you have the rest of the week. You can work it out. Yeah. Hey, Ken, what about this? Here's a question somebody would say. All right, well, look, I understand there are people in need in my community, but there's lots of stuff out there to help them. Why am I needed? Why is my church needed? Or should I be part of doing something to serve my community? What would you say to that?
I think the way I would respond is, I think the government services that we have, I honor all of the people who are providing those needs and providing those goods and resources, whatever. But I don't think those government resources and needs would even have to be there if the people of God, if we actually responded to the gospel and responded to the word of God. I think that if the church truly was fully the hands and feet of Jesus, I don't think there would be any need for Medicare or Medicaid. I don't think there'd be any need for any type of food assistance. I really honor every person who is a part of making all of that happen. And I feel like the Lord has provided a way because, in obviously his sovereignty, he's wanted the church to kind of raise their hand and go first. But we have fumbled a little bit. And so I think that, I hope that's answering the question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so.
I have heard that brought up before, that a good glimpse and snapshot into, we'll say, American Christianity is we have all this infrastructure. Whereas if you look at Christ followers in other countries that can't rely on their government to help provide
Book
food,
of Acts.
They're praying, God, I need food.
They had all things in common. Mm-hmm. The book of, it's like that whole idea. Yeah.
Then one last question for you, and Kenneth, thank you so much for sitting down with us, I feel like there's a phrase that gets used in modern church circles that I agree with, but sometimes if we've heard it enough, it loses meaning. That's true with really any phrase that we hear a bunch, but I want to just say it because I think it's very, very true. And I mean every syllable of it. I feel like this conversation has been life-giving. I feel like as we've been talking about growing in serving, that there have been some really, really good things said and some really, really shepherding things said that I think are going to be transformative for a lot of folks as they listen to this. My last question for you would just be this. Okay, so somebody's listening. They go, yeah, you know what? Maybe I will do something. How do I take my next step? And I know that's a broad question because there's all kinds of churches and all kinds of ministries. But what would you encourage in the simplest fashion? Somebody who's maybe I could do more. Like, what would you encourage them to do?
I think one of the greatest questions that somebody can ask me, whether it's and we talk about lobby conversations or offline, online, however we're having these conversations, they would say, hey, Pastor Kenneth, what's the greatest need right now?
Hmm.
And having the willingness, and if you're not sure where you want to serve, be careful if you ask that question because you don't know what the answer. But I do believe this is I think that God, as we follow Him, He gives us the desires of our heart. And I grew up in a faith tradition that was like, oh gosh, God's will is going to be, He's going to send me to be a missionary and where I don't want to be. And He may send us and stretch us and grow us, but most often He sends us to where we come alive even more. And so I think the person that's maybe reluctant, maybe it's like that, I don't, there's differing structures of churches, differing sizes, there's differing, all kinds of ways that people are, get the process of how they get into serving, but maybe it's just walking up to a leader or the pastor, depending on the access that you may have to the people in your church, and just saying, hey, what is the greatest need, and how can I help?
Oh, I love that.
I'm here to help.
Love that. Yeah. Well, thank you, brother, so much for sitting down and talking with us. And I can tell you, man, if anybody were to come up to me on a Sunday morning as a pastor and say, where's the greatest need? Oh, that my day is made. Like, let's go. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like the heart posture too, just because sometimes you might think, yes, I am a singer. I am going to sing on the worship team. And you limit yourself to this very specific spot. And maybe you can sing.
Right.
Maybe it's your face with a smile at the front door that's actually going to help more people come to know the Lord. And I like that.
And maybe it's somewhere hidden in kids ministry, changing a diaper or teaching kids Jesus on their level, where no one but you don't get the applause of man, but you'll get the applause from heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, so staff meeting Monday morning, we were going over our wins, and our kids director. So one of our things that we do is, hey, what's something good that we saw on Sunday? And our kids director said, man, we had a guy who's been serving in kids, and the whole reason he went in there was he just asked, hey, like, where's the greatest need in the church? And he's an older fellow. He's in his 60s. He's not, like a young mom or anything like that. And he had been there a couple weeks, and he was just feeling it out to see like what it was like. But she said, man, he was just engaging the kids this week, and like they loved their time with him, and it was so incredible to see. That's something where I know this because I'm around him. That's never anything he would have anticipated for his life.
Right.
But he was willing to take the risk and make the ask, and
we need more men in kids ministry.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing opportunity for the young men to see a godly man leading the way.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and we need both men and women leading the way and showing them what the kingdom looks like and how to worship and go after God.
And there might not be any godly men in that child's life.
That's exactly my point of, like, they may not have a godly father, even a godly grandfather, maybe no true North Star of what a godly man looks like, but that one, I think of the few men who are serving in our kids ministry right now, and how proud I am of them that they jump in and they're, just having the time of their life leading kids.
I love that.
Pastor Kenneth, thanks so much for joining us.
Honored to be here.
If you have questions for the podcast, for future episode suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Email those to podcast@wearethebridge.org. Thanks for listening.